This is the Dave Elliott Show.
And good morning. Thank you for hanging out with us on a Thursday. It's the Dave Elliott Show here. And as promised, it's me. And it's going to be pretty much me and along with our good friend Bob Zany. That'll be it for today. My regularly scheduled co-host, Kathy, has some other appointments she has to keep this morning, so is unable to make it. But she'll be back with us next week, no problem. And Zany, of course, is funny and zany and direct from Las Vegas. So we'll get to him in the 8 o'clock hour this morning. If you're listening on delay, it'll be about an hour from now. A couple of things I wanted to go over with you this morning. First of all, this is an enterprise that I have engaged in because I felt like I needed to stay connected to my audience. You know, you build up a relationship with people, even if you never met. I know you're out there, and I know that you enjoy what we do, and we're grateful for that. I do encourage you to let your friends know about it because that's one of the ways that we can grow and continue is if we continue to see new listeners. We'll bring you throughout the course of the show on any given week local public officials like we did yesterday when we talked about the election and we had former Professor Peter Bergerson on with us. We will have former Naples Mayor Bill Barnett with us tomorrow. Our good pal Chelsea Murphy, if technical stuff all works out, will be with us tomorrow as well. And we'll be telling you where to go, what to do in town. Even though we're nowhere near the beginning of season, there is still an awful lot of activity that can be partaken of in the area. And we're also looking for stories from regular, normal, ordinary, everyday people. You know, you like to tune in when you hear about celebrities or you hear about famous people because you want to know what's going on with them. But there may be people in your own backyard or your neighbor across the street or somebody you met 5 years ago who have a great story to tell. And if you know somebody like that, I would love to encourage you to just shoot me a text at 305-699-2665 any time of the day or night. Give me their sentence or two about what makes them unique and how to reach them, and I will take it from there. This is an unusual show in that sometimes we act like a radio show, and sometimes we act like a podcast where I might just do a monologue for 2 hours. But whatever the case may be, I'm going to try to bring you enough variety and new information that you'll want to tune in. And of course, we can't do without the impossible question, which we will do later in the show this morning. So that being said, thank you very much for your support. Just by listening or tuning in whenever you do, that's support enough. And don't hesitate to contact me at 305-699-2665 with anything at all that you have that you think I'd be interested in. I heard from a listener yesterday, or maybe the day before, I forget now, time has flown by so quickly, who had a horrible experience with some scammers, and we're going to be talking to her next week about that issue because I think it's a great cautionary tale for everybody who thinks they know how to avoid being scammed. I remember one time I had a recording studio here in town. It was a small studio. I did primarily voiceover work myself, and I would bring in, and there would be other talent who would come in and visit. You know, the guy, for example, the guy that does Geico that says 15 minutes will save you 15% or more on your car insurance. He was in my studio one time. I've had actor Richard Jenkins in the studio, who is well known and was just in a thing called DTF St. Louis. He was in the studio doing looping and other work. I've had the late, great Peter Thomas, former Naples resident, in my studio. I've worked with people from Home Depot and Toyota and Jared. Remember Jared Jewelers? I've worked with all people from there. I've done recordings of audiobooks, not me personally, but I've engineered them. Worked with the late author David McCullough, as example, on 2 books. One, he wrote a book about the Brooklyn Bridge, which is just incredible. And he came in and recorded a new foreword for the book. Another time, I helped record his audiobook version of the Wright brothers biography that he wrote, which is just fascinating. So I've worked with a number of people who are famous and not famous. There may be not names you would recognize, but they are nonetheless people who, were good at their craft. So one day I went to the office and I saw an email to my studio. It said, "This is FPL. You have 30 minutes to pay a past due bill or your power's going off." Well, in my case, I knew that didn't apply to me because I didn't pay separately for electricity. That was covered by my rent. So I contacted the owner of the building, who happened to be right across the street. And I said, "Hey, did you not pay your power bill?" And he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, I just got a notice that the power is going to be turned off at like 1:30. And he said, "Oh, that's a scam." And I said, "No, it's from FPL." Now, I know better, but I still fell for it. And it was only after I studied the email and looked at the return email address that I realized it wasn't from FPL at all. One of the things they'll do is they'll show in your email it's, Sally from FPL. And you go, well, it's got to be legit. But then if you click on that return address and you look at what the real return address is, you realize that it's some alphabet soup of numbers that couldn't be anything legit. Scamming does happen, and you have to be so careful with it. You never know. I mean, I got an email this morning, something about my cloud services. Well, I have stuff in the cloud, different clouds. But what I realized is the email was from something called Cloud Services, no company name attached to it. And when I looked at the return email address, it was, again, alphabet soup. It made no sense. So you got to be careful of the email scam stuff, text scam stuff, even phone scams. I get, and it seems to go in cycles. Yesterday I had about 12 or 13 potential spam calls, and I just don't answer them. Now, if you have an iPhone, and particularly if you're a Verizon customer, which I am, you might not realize that there is a setting you can turn on your phone that will send what the phone says are spam calls or potential spam calls directly to voicemail without your phone even ringing, which you would think on the one hand, that's great. But really what it does is it filters out almost any call that doesn't have an associated entry in your contacts. So you might miss legit calls. Maybe you called somebody at an office and they were going to call you right back. That call will go to voicemail. So I've had to turn off that feature because really there's no way to adequately know whether the phone call that you're getting is really spam or just something that your phone thinks is spam. The spammers seem to have it both ways. Heard from my good friend listener up in Georgian Bay. He says, Andrew, back up on Georgian Bay, Ontario. Find your show a beautiful accompaniment to the sound of gentle waves and birds singing at breakfast. Well, that's very nice, Andrew. Thank you. Makes me feel really good knowing that you're up there enjoying me, and I wish I was sitting out on the deck with you having a little scrambled eggs and some turkey sausage, as a matter of fact. Speaking of a nice day, we're going to have another scorcher today. Mix of clouds and sun during the morning will give way to cloudy skies this afternoon. There'll be a stray shower or thunderstorm possible. High 91 in Naples. North-northeast winds shifting to west-northwest at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Right now it's reportedly 81 degrees at the Naples airport. 81 at 11 minutes after 7 o'clock. Can you imagine 81 degrees? Well, I can imagine it. I don't have to imagine it. Just walk outside to get the paper or, take your morning walk and you'll see it. But we should reach our peak heating today, according to the weather report I have, at around 1 o'clock this afternoon. So then things, finally, by 9 o'clock tonight, it'll cool down to 83. Holy mackerel. I don't know about you, but if you're up on Georgian Bay, I would imagine, Andrew, up there on Georgian Bay, it gets into the 50s in the summertime at night and probably very comfortably in the 70s or 60s during the day. I think that's something I remember from when I lived in Michigan. Even in July, you could wake up in the morning and go outside. It'd be 58, 59 degrees. And it's a little bit of a surprise if you're a Neapolitan like I have been for the last 32 years. But it's not such a surprise if you're a Wisconsinite or you're from Michigan or any of those other places. I don't mind 50-degree weather in the morning, and they're nice when we have those days here occasionally. They really make you appreciate the cool weather up north, where seasons are really noticeable. One of the things I hate the most about the heat, and I don't hate the heat, but there are things I dislike about it, is that when you turn on the cold water, have you noticed? At first the water is kind of coolish, and then it warms up, the cold water. Because the water that's in the pipes in the air-conditioned part of your house is still cool, cool meaning 75, 76, 77 degrees. But then the water that comes into the pipes from the city or county water supply is warm because it's outside. And there's nothing I like better than brushing my teeth with warm water. Not so much. Not so much. So back to my original premise here. I love what I do in the morning, and I love it so much that I'm doing it for the love of it. I wake up now 2 hours later than I used to when I was on the radio, which is kind of nice. My commute is 10 or 15 steps into my home studio where we produce this little show. And we're going to continue to do it as long as there is an interest in it from the listener base, which I hope there is, to be very honest with you, because, as I say, I love doing it. I'm not doing it for money. I'm not doing it for any other reason than I enjoy it, and I think there's stuff that you can take away from it on a daily basis. Maybe it's only something you'll talk about around the water cooler or, you make on a bar bet or something like that, but it's out there nonetheless. Okay, it's 7:15. We'll be back right after this.
You've got Dave Elliott.
When it comes to your health, there's no cookie cutter way to do things. Each person is individualized in their needs and their desires, and that's the case with your hearing, too. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, with 2 locations in Naples, one in Colonial Square off Goodlette Frank Road, the other in the Vanderbilt Commons at Vanderbilt and Collier Boulevard are here to help you. They help you with individualized treatment. You go in for a free hearing evaluation, and if you should happen to need a little help from a hearing device, they can offer you the exact device you need, the exact technology you need for your particular needs. Don't let your hearing get in the way of enjoying your life. They even have devices that can cut out the background noise if you're in a big crowd someplace. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, I've been going to them for years, and I know you should too. Believe me, you will notice the difference right away. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, online at napleshearingcenter.com.
Are you ready for a culinary experience like no other? Mark your calendars for the event of the season. Sizzle Dining is happening starting September 1st through the 30th. Picture this, a world of flavors, a celebration of taste, and a chance to make a difference in our community. Savor delectable dishes, expertly crafted by top chefs, each plate telling a story of passion and creativity. But that's not all. Sizzle Dining benefits Blessings in a Backpack of Southwest Florida, a charity dedicated to ensuring no child has a hungry weekend. Dine with purpose. Every time you indulge in the exquisite offerings during Sizzle Dining, a portion of the proceeds will go directly to Blessings in a Backpack. So gather your loved ones, invite your friends, and come experience culinary excellence while making a meaningful impact. Share your moments with hashtag Dine with Purpose. Sizzle Dining, taking place the entire month of September, where taste, compassion, and community come together in perfect harmony. Reserve your table today, because with Sizzle Dining, every bite counts and every meal matters.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
He's reached that age where his brain goes, "You probably shouldn't say that," to "I can't wait to see where this goes." Dave Elliott.
Thank you, Mike. Well, one of the things that I love most about doing this show is I get to find the wackiest and craziest and most interesting stories out there anywhere. And I do a little work to find stuff that I think you may not see elsewhere. There are obviously stories that you do see elsewhere, but some of these are crazy. Like this one, for example, 5 news reporters and 2 members of the military who were invited to an event at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California were briefly detained at gunpoint by security officers who thought they were gate crashers, according to local news reports. They were invited, and they were detained because they didn't, I don't know why, they looked suspicious. The incident happened Monday ahead of an invitation-only groundbreaking for a new training facility for missile operators at the Federal Airport near Santa Barbara, California. Reporters from Newshawk and KEYT, which is a TV station, were among those detained, and both outlets published articles detailing the detainment. In a statement to Newshawk, you know how they spell Newshawk? Noozhawk, Newshawk. A space-launched Delta 30 public affairs spokesperson called the incident a breakdown in communication, saying in a statement, Vandenberg Space Force Base is experiencing an increased number of unauthorized entry attempts. Every potential unauthorized presence must be treated as a legitimate threat until proven otherwise. While we recognize this may have been unsettling, the security of the base and its personnel is our priority. I'm a little suspicious that it was news people who were invited who then got detained. The reporters and military members were part of a convoy being escorted onto the base by uniformed public affairs staff in a government minivan. They were already in the minivan when they were suddenly ordered out of their vehicles with their hands up, according to news reports. And in this environment where there are so many attacks on the press, I'm sure they thought, they've done a background check on me and found out I stole a candy bar when I was 6. Officers pointed guns, sirens were sounded, and barricades went up at the gate entrance, according to KEYT. The 2 military members assigned to the base, one enlisted and one a junior officer, were handcuffed and placed in base vehicles while the civilians were ordered to sit on a curb, which is what you do to a civilian, sit on a curb. The reporters for outlets also included KSBY-TV and the Santa Maria Times-Lompoc Record. They were held for more than 30 minutes, causing them to, actually miss the event. They were all let go without further incident. You got to wonder what's really going on here. They were invited, and then they were forced to miss the event that they were invited to cover. We'll show you. I don't know. Doesn't that seem weird to you? Elsewhere, Hawaii is on the alert for another potential tropical storm. I'm telling you, if you ever noticed, last year we had a train of storms that came off the coast of Africa and headed toward Florida, and in every case, they veered to the north before they got to Florida, almost all following the exact same track. They weren't the exact same track, but to the casual observer, it might look that way. The exact same track. Well, now this same thing is happening in Hawaii. A red blob on the National Hurricane Center's tracking map for the Pacific Ocean has grown more threatening for the state, which is still recovering from Hurricane Lala's winds and the tremendous rainfall that happened. The storm did not ever make landfall, but that's an example of how a landfalling storm isn't necessarily the biggest hazard you could have. The disturbance, still well to the east-southeast of the Hawaiian Islands, has a 90% chance of becoming a tropical depression within the next 48 hours, according to a tropical outlook yesterday by Larry Kelly, a hurricane specialist at the National Hurricane Center. Interests in the Hawaiian Islands should closely monitor the progress of the system, he warned. The next storm that forms in the central Pacific would be named Moke. Let's hope it's only a mini Moke, shall we? They don't need it anymore. I follow some people on Instagram who are in Hawaii, and the stuff they're showing, I mean, houses literally blown apart. Rivers overflowing their banks, massive amounts of flooding, all on the Hawaiian Islands. So you may think it's paradise, and it is for a lot of people, but boy, right now they're getting hammered. And speaking of all of that, AccuWeather has updated its hurricane season prediction, and the news, not too shabby. That doesn't mean you should neglect preparations. But while the number of named storms has dropped, forecasters yesterday continue to predict 3 to 5 direct impacts on the United States. Haven't we already had 2? One up in, I think both in the Louisiana, Texas, Panhandle area. Not Panhandle, but Texas coast area. Both NOAA and Colorado State University forecasters also have continued to lower expectations for the season. This is from AccuWeather. El Nino is poised to become one of the strongest in history, a major factor expected to limit tropical activity through the rest of the Atlantic hurricane season, said the meteorologists at AccuWeather in State College, Pennsylvania. So the latest hurricane season predictions from AccuWeather look like this. If I can make them out here. Let's see. It looks like 3 named storms so far this year. There have been 3. Direct U.S. impacts 2. So we've got 1 more to go to meet their minimum of 3 to 5 direct impacts on the United States. The forecast for this year is for 8 to 11 named storms, 3 to 4 hurricanes, and 1 to 2 major hurricanes. That's from AccuWeather, with the direct impacts on the United States of about 3 to 5. Last year, there were 14 named storms. That includes one unnamed tropical wind and rainstorm that impacted the East Coast on October 10th through 14th last year. 14 was the normal named storms. I'm sorry, 8 to 11. No, I'm sorry, 14 named storms last year. 5 hurricanes, 4 major hurricanes, and 4 that directly impacted the United States. To give you a record, the 30-year historical average of named storms, 14, and that's what it was last year. The 30-year historical average was 7, and there were 5 last year. The 30-year historical average of major hurricanes is 3. There were 4 last year. And in terms of direct U.S. impacts, there were 4 last year, which is the same as the average year. So basically, last year was considered an average year, except there were 2 more hurricanes than normal. That was it. So not to let the guard down. You still need to keep a weather eye out. But it doesn't look like we're going to have as active a season, to say the least. Not one of those deals where, you go through a storm, and then you look and, oh, here comes another one, and then here comes another one. We're not going to get that. All good news, to be sure. Have you been following the, I guess you could call it, controversy surrounding flock cameras? You know what these flock cameras are? You've seen them in Cape Coral. They've been cutting them. Somebody's got some sort of a power saw, apparently, and they're sneaking up behind the cameras, and they're literally cutting the pole down, and the camera's smashed to the ground. I've noticed some video on TV showing this, and it's kind of disturbing, really. If only there were some way they could see who it is. Maybe they need to put a surveillance camera on the back of the flock camera mount so you can see who's sneaking up on it. But anyway, people are cutting them down, they're tearing them down, they're destroying them, and they're doing so in a pretty overt way. Well, flock cameras are designed to basically read license plate numbers of vehicles that pass by the flock camera location. And if they have several locations in an area, it's possible to track the progress of a particular vehicle by license number. They use artificial intelligence to, gather information about the car and the license number and so on and so forth. But more and more people are getting upset about these flock cameras claiming it somehow violates their privacy. Well, you do realize, don't you, that when you're out in public, other than being assaulted, you have no right to privacy. If somebody takes a picture of a building and you happen to be in front of that building walking to the donut shop and your face shows up in that picture, well, you don't have an expectation that they won't take your picture. You're in public. Everything you do in public is public. And I suppose you could argue that includes your car, because if you can be seen inside your car by normal, ordinary, everyday people, then what you're doing is basically in public. If you don't believe me, watch some of the things people do in their cars when they think they're in private, and you'll understand that they don't think it's public. Well, Flock has told the public for years that its technology cannot recognize, identify, or track individuals. It has now built a system that does both. An artificial intelligence tool for police that can identify drivers and track vehicles by their patterns of movement alone, according to the website Wired. I used to subscribe to Wired magazine. I loved it. It was a great publication. So drawing on a network of cameras that logs the movements of drivers in more than 6,000 communities, the Flock camera tool can pick out potential witnesses by how often their cars pass through a neighborhood, or surface a driver's associates from the cameras they pass together. Because the system also reaches police case files, 911 dispatch logs, and commercial identity records, those plates can be turned into names, home addresses, even relatives. It can search for people in an area drawn on a map based on nothing more than a physical description. And that's all because of a number, which is your unique license plate number. I bet you never thought about this, but that number is just as unique as your Social Security number. You are the only one that has ever had that number. The software, originally called Night Shift and more recently renamed OS Investigate, ships with 69 pre-written prompts that officers can select, review, or edit and then submit to the AI. Officers can also input prompts of their own. The suggested prompts sit in a cache of more than 450 files that Wired, the publication, found on Flock's own website, served by its login pages to anyone who loaded them. The code describes 45 tools at the AI's disposal, giving it access to plate scans and camera metadata. Metadata is the information in a camera that you don't see, but it's embedded, and it can include things like the date, the time, and the location of a photo having been taken. It can also include arrest records, case files, dispatch logs, ballistics results, and commercial databases that contain Social Security numbers, dates of birth, phone numbers, email addresses, relatives, and associates. All of that from a camera that just takes a picture of your license plate. Flock said it's testing the product with a small group of law enforcement partners and describes it as still in development with capabilities that may not reflect what it eventually sells. It arrives as the company faces bipartisan political pressure, a growing record of officers caught misusing the platform, and a wave of vandalism that I just mentioned that has left cameras sawed off and lenses painted over in cities across the country. So this Flock camera thing is becoming quite a deal. My question to you this morning is, are you in favor of or not in favor of Flock cameras? My take on it is most of the information that you think is private about you is out there in public anyway. If you've ever bought anything on a website or signed up for anything online, your information is out there. More importantly, if you've ever committed a crime, that information is available to police, and that includes your name and your Social Security number probably. So that information can easily be tied to your license plate. You can see how the license plate, something that you probably thought was innocuous to start with, can be used to point the finger at you. So my take is, if you haven't done anything wrong, you got nothing to hide. On the other hand, where the problems arise is in misusing the technology. Maybe you have a law enforcement officer who's stalking an ex-girlfriend or an ex-boyfriend, depending on who they are. Maybe they want to find out all they can about them so they can track their movements. Maybe somebody hacks into a system and starts harvesting information about people that they can then use to defraud them or steal their identities. There are lots of reasons to not like Flock cameras. I think the original intent was good. They differ from traffic cameras in that a Flock camera is only gathering information and passing it along to people to analyze and use. A traffic camera is designed to take the place of a live human being and issue you a fine or a citation for violating a traffic law. So there are big differences between the two. But my question to you this morning is, do you think Flock cameras are useful, or should they be taken out of service? Let me know. You can text me or call me on this issue at 305-699-2665. 305-699-COOL. If you have a thought or an opinion on it this morning, you know, you and I, we're in a small group of people who listen to this show every day, and I'd like to have a dialogue with you about it. So, should flock cameras be taken out of service? We have them in Naples. Or should they be restricted in use? Or should they be left alone to help police solve crimes and find the bad guys? 305-699-2665. If you send me a text, just put your first name in the text somewhere so I know who you are and I can identify your comments and you can know that you've been identified. And I'm not using flock cameras either. I frankly don't see a problem with them as long as they're used properly, and I'm not sure what kind of security measures there are to prevent them from being hacked. I suspect that because it is an information gathering tool, there is in some way a method to keep people out who shouldn't be in, if you know what I mean. 305-699-2665. Flock cameras, good, bad, or indifferent to you? What do you think? 4 things you didn't know yesterday. I'll take your comments or calls or texts on flock cameras till 8 o'clock this morning, or about another 23 minutes. But I am going to move on to other stuff, and I'll come back to flock cameras if you want to talk about it. 4 things you didn't know yesterday. How much do you suppose $1 million in $100 bills would weigh? If you could put $100, if you could put $1 million worth of $100 bills on a scale, how much do you think it would weigh? 22 pounds. So anybody who tells you they're going to rob a bank and get 22 pounds, that's like a bag of potatoes. That's heavy. I'm not sure how much volume there would be. I don't think you could stick it down your pants pocket. Another thing you didn't know yesterday, in the movie The Odyssey, they had to make 5,300 costumes for that movie. How's that for a number? Another thing you didn't know yesterday, sharks evolved long before modern terrestrial fire was even possible, because early Earth had too little oxygen to support widespread combustion. That's how long sharks have been around. No wonder they get a little surly when you're swimming in their area. And the last thing you didn't know yesterday, each silk strand on an ear of corn is attached to one potential kernel. How about that? I don't know that anybody's ever counted the silk strands on an ear of corn, but if you were to do that, you'd find out how many kernels have yet to be created. Does that mean that if you can find an ear of corn with all the kernels possible to be created, there's no silk? I don't know the answer to that either. I do know that when you shuck corn, it can be time-consuming to get rid of all that silk, to be sure. NASA called off the mission to save its dying space telescope yesterday, meaning that later this year it's going to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere out of control, and people will think it's a UFO. The space agency has spent $30 million in hopes of sending another spacecraft to push its Swift observatory into a higher orbit and avoid that uncontrolled fallback to Earth. The exact date and location of reentry are not yet known. The rescue spacecraft named Link, went into an uncontrollable spin a few weeks after its liftoff in early July. The rescue spacecraft, named Link, as I mentioned, went into, I read that twice, didn't I? While flight controllers managed to slow Link's tumble, issues continued to plague its pointing and positioning in orbit. NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said in a statement, "This is not the outcome we were working toward." Really, Jared? But it does not change why this mission was worth attempting. Swift was launched in 2004, 22 years ago, to study gamma ray bursts, the most powerful explosions in the universe, and other cosmic objects and events. It was designed for a 2-year prime mission. After 21 years of science operations, Swift's low Earth orbit began to rapidly decay because of increased solar activity. So it's going to hit the atmosphere, burn up, and land somewhere. Hopefully not on my house, because I'm sure there's some provision in my insurance policy that says if a spacecraft hits the roof, you're not covered. I'm just guessing. Like a klutz on an obstacle course, a Tesla robo-taxi with no safety driver seemingly panicked after taking a wrong turn and plowed through a row of bollards. You know, those springy traffic barriers that you're not supposed to run down, the little skinny things with the orange and the white reflectors on them that stick to the ground? The incident was captured in a video uploaded Monday to the Reddit self-driving cars subreddit and first spotted by Electrek. It was taken by a rider sitting in the front passenger seat who sounded progressively more concerned as it dawned on him what the robo-taxi was trying to do. It's going through the bollards, the passenger says, as the car inches toward the barriers. In the video, it appears the self-driving Tesla drove into a curb extension delineated by plastic bollards, thinking it was a right turn lane, but once it tried to turn onto the next street, it realized it was hemmed in. Those bollards right here, you can't go this way, the passenger exhorts the cab. Don't do that. The vehicle clearly recognizes the obstacles in the way, freezes in place for around a minute, occasionally fidgeting with the steering wheel and pulsing the brakes. Instead of reversing out, though, it eventually decides on a drastic course of action, driving straight through the bollards. Luckily for everyone involved, the bollards were the flimsy plastic kind. Otherwise, this might have ended up being fodder for the World Bollard Association. Bollards. And there's a guy, the guy, I'm looking at the video right now, the guy who had his cell phone. He's showing the self-driving vehicle, the map on the road, peeking out the windshield with his camera as the car's trying to decide what to do. And holy cow, what a mess. So that's one Tesla story for you this morning. Of course, these stories almost all come in pairs or groups. So from Reddit and the Washington Post this morning, the headline, Tesla's true believers are starting to question their faith in Elon Musk. His long-term product roadmap for Tesla reads to some as an elaborate fantasy, says the Washington Post, producing 1 million Optimus humanoid robots, helping build the largest chip fabricator in the world, and making millions of vehicles fully autonomous to create a massive robo-taxi network shuttling passengers across the globe. Achieving any one of these milestones alone would set Tesla apart from the competing auto and tech companies, but so far the company hasn't marked the major breakthroughs to convince investors. I don't trust management's commentary anymore, Matt Smith, a partner of Ferguson's at Rebellion Air, wrote on X. Way too many broken promises and missed something lines, D blank 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 lines. I'm not sure. It's supposed to be deadlines, maybe. I'm an investor, not a cheerleader, he said in a follow-up post. Ross Gerber, a SpaceX investor who has been critical of Musk's leadership of his companies in recent years, has found the sudden tone shift from once bullish investors' corners amusing. He has a term for the fanboys who've largely fallen in line with whatever Musk was pitching. He said, I think the minions are unhappy. So if you think about it, there were a lot of promises made about self-driving vehicles, even to the point where Tesla has named one of its products fully self-driving FSD mode. But it doesn't seem to work. I'm not sure why that is. I guess the technology is maybe not fully baked, or they didn't realize that humans can make infinite numbers of combinations of bad moves, more than you could ever possibly train an AI for. The AI learns about it once it encounters the bad move, and then it goes into its data bank. But after that, ta-da! A NASA spacecraft circling the moon is providing the sharpest views yet of the crater carved by a crashing SpaceX rocket. I'm not piling on Elon. It just happened to show up this way. The space agency released before and after photos of the impact area Tuesday. The Falcon rocket's upper stage plowed into the moon at 5,400 miles an hour, which is slightly faster than people drive on I-75. Back on August 5th, after drifting through space for more than a year, it launched a pair of private moon landers with experiments and even a tiny rover in 2025 as part of NASA's push to commercialize lunar exploration. Based on these new photos by NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, the fresh crater appears to be about 60 feet across and less than 10 feet deep, according to scientists. So it, it was sizable, but it wasn't tremendous. It's not like Crater Lake or anything like that. And besides that, there's a lot of room on the moon and not too many people there. So you don't have to worry about hitting anybody. Dark and bright streaks are clearly visible, emanating like butterfly wings from the crater. The darker lines represent excavated material that was close to the surface and shaped by eons of solar wind, cosmic rays, and micrometeorite strikes. The brighter rays indicate fresh rocks and dirt that were hurled from farther down. Anyway, if you have a good telescope, you still can't see it. You have to rely on the orbiting satellite. Yeah, there's a satellite orbiting the moon. I don't know if you do that or not. And when we come back from this break, what Amazon says is going to be happening in 500 U.S. cities and towns by the end of the year. All I can say is get a construction helmet.
You've got Dave Elliott.
A minute out for Alice Sweetwaters. You know how much I love Alice's? Well, let me tell you how much I love Alice's. For the last 22 years, I have been telling everybody I can about how great Alice Sweetwaters is. From their fresh-made seafood dishes to their incredible bar, their wild wine list, the ability to eat indoors or outdoors, and I might add, some pretty darn nice gazpacho, you will find exactly what you're looking for at Alice Sweetwaters. Try the shrimp wontons, for example. They're absolutely fantastic. Or the little mini sliders, or the grouper fish and chips, or the grouper dinner, or the grouper Reuben. You get my drift? There's a lot of stuff going on at Alice Sweetwaters, including the best sandwich in America, the lobster Reuben. Check it all out at the corner of Airport Road and Glades Boulevard. Alice Sweetwaters, where they serve crabs, shrimps, and big people.
Have you finally found your dream home, or are you looking to refinance or pull equity from your home? Then call Alpha Title Services of Florida. Don't let fraud or hidden property issues, such as liens, unpaid taxes, boundary mistakes, or a cloud on title, to name a few, ruin your big day. That's why you need Alpha Title Services in your corner. They do the deep digging to complete your contract conditions and assure your title is clear in order to provide the ultimate protection on your family's investment. Before you sign on the dotted line, make sure your future will be truly yours by contacting Alpha Title Services at 239-260-1495. To protect your dream, let your realtor or lender know you choose Alpha Title Services of Florida to handle all of your closing needs. Trust the people who have been serving the real estate community since 1999. Trust the people you can call to ask questions before signing your contract. Trust Alpha Title Services of Florida. Online at alphatitleservices.com or call 239-260-1495.
Are you ready for a culinary experience like no other? Mark your calendars for the event of the season. Sizzle Dining is happening starting September 1st through the 30th. Picture this, a world of flavors, a celebration of taste, and a chance to make a difference in our community. Savor delectable dishes, expertly crafted by top chefs, each plate telling a story of passion and creativity. But that's not all. Sizzle Dining benefits Blessings in a Backpack of Southwest Florida, a charity dedicated to ensuring no child has a hungry weekend. Dine with purpose. Every time you indulge in the exquisite offerings during Sizzle Dining, a portion of the proceeds will go directly to Blessings in a Backpack. So gather your loved ones, invite your friends, and come experience culinary excellence while making a meaningful impact. Share your moments with hashtag Dine with Purpose. Sizzle Dining, taking place the entire month of September, where taste, compassion, and community come together in perfect harmony. Reserve your table today, because with Sizzle Dining, every bite counts and every meal matters.
When I smoke weed, I get lost in the music. I like to isolate each instrument. The rhythmic bass, the harmonies on the piano, the sticky melody.
Hey, careful, babe. There's someone crossing the street.
Sorry, I didn't see him there.
If you feel different, you drive different. Don't drive high. It's dangerous and illegal everywhere. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
He's not really old. He's 45, plus shipping and handling. Dave Elliott.
7:52 live on our live stream this morning. In other words, it's about 52 minutes into the show, and coming up in just a little bit, I'd say about 15 minutes, we're going to be checking in with our good buddy Bob Zany with the Zany Report direct from Vegas. So be ready for that. Amazon said yesterday, get ready for this, get your crash helmet on, that it plans to offer drone deliveries in nearly 500 U.S. cities and towns by the end of the year. A sign of momentum for a project that's been slow to develop since founder Jeff Bezos first laid out his vision for the service, believe it or not, 13 years ago. The planned expansion for Prime Air would represent a six-fold increase from its current footprint, the company said in a blog post. Amazon's latest update comes 5 months after David Carbon, the president of Prime Air, spoke rather confidently about the program and laid out some ambitious growth plans in an internal all-hands meeting, according to reporting from CNBC this morning. Carbon projected at the time that Prime Air will make 1 million deliveries this year and said Amazon had the highest demand drone delivery service in the country, in the industry, I should say. The company said Wednesday it made hundreds of thousands of deliveries so far this year and makes thousands daily. Bezos, who stepped down as CEO 5 years ago, pledged in 2013 to build a network of drones to deliver small packages in 30 minutes or less. Since then, the program has faced regulatory delays and staff cuts, as well as technical challenges and pushback from some communities where it conducted early pilots. Amazon in 2024 received a critical green light from regulators to conduct long-range drone deliveries, and over the past year has expanded beyond initial markets near Dallas and Phoenix to 11 metro areas, with 6 other locations coming online soon. Residents in those markets continue to raise concerns about drone noise and delivery and privacy, and all those issues could hurt property values. I don't see drones hurting property values. I think that's a bogus argument. Amazon is hoping it can transform drone delivery from a futuristic concept to a critical piece of its speedy delivery playbook. After getting shoppers hooked on free 2-day delivery, the company has moved to 1-day and increasingly same-day deliveries while testing out ultra-fast models in more pockets of the U.S. through Amazon Now. Most Prime Air packages arrive in about 60 minutes, but the company says it has completed some drone deliveries in as little as a few minutes after checkout. And it's because we want stuff now, and we want it now, brown cow. I've noticed more and more stuff that I order says you can have it in 3 to 5 hours, or for $4.99 you can have it in like an hour. I'm thinking that's because they're building fulfillment centers everywhere. Like we have a big one in Naples. That long time vacant building that was at the corner of Davis and 951. I think that's now an Amazon fulfillment center. There's another one in Fort Myers, and they're building a bigger one up there. And they're popping up all over the country. They want to be closer to you so they can get you your stuff faster. And I guess the idea is eventually you won't ever have to leave your house. You need a new box of Kleenex, so they'll just drop one from a drone into your front yard. And I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you probably already knew it anyway. The United States is digging itself into an ever deeper debt hole. The federal debt hit a record $40 trillion on Tuesday, according to the Treasury Department. It's a rather inauspicious milestone that will have consequences for Americans, businesses, and government for years to come. The Treasury Department's data on the federal debt is released on a one-day delay. While this country has long carried a significant amount of debt, there are several recent trends that have budget and financial market experts even more concerned. The tab has been growing more swiftly in recent years. Interest payments on the debt have gone crazy as interest rates and borrowing have risen, and all of this is happening in relatively good economic times. Imagine what happens when money gets tight. Michael Peterson, CEO of the Peter G. Peterson Foundation, said, "On our current path, we're going to be at $50 trillion in just 6 years. If you look backward, we were at $20 trillion less than 10 years ago. We're really putting our economy and our country's future in jeopardy." But there's an old expression that goes, if you owe the bank $1,000, the bank is in control. They can get the $1,000. If you owe them $1 billion, you're in control because they can't afford to write it off and they got to work with you. Several factors are contributing to the skyrocketing debt load. A big one is the nation is aging with roughly 10,000 baby boomers retiring every day and senior citizens living longer. That means the feds are shelling out ever more on Social Security and Medicare. These bedrock programs are on even shakier fiscal ground without enough workers to support the growing number of beneficiaries. Also, over the last few decades, Congress has passed multiple packages that cut taxes and increased spending, including the Tax Cuts and Job Acts of 2017 and the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act of 2024, and several COVID-19 pandemic relief bills under Trump and former President Joe Biden. These measures are projected to increase the federal debt by trillions of dollars over time. The $40 trillion milestone is hitting sooner than was expected even a few years ago. The Congressional Budget Office projected in May of 2023 that we would cross the threshold not this year, not next year, but in 2028. Now, let me ask you this. When you get a notice from your bank that you're overdrawn by, say, $1,000, is the first thing you do go out and spend money and cut back on the amount of money you put toward that debt? I didn't think so. So maybe we need to tell our legislators, stop screwing around with taxes. Stop screwing around with spending. Start being responsible. Pretend you know how to balance a checkbook, and then do it. What we need, if we're not going to institute the fair tax in this country, and by the way, the fair tax can't solve the $40 trillion debt we have in this country. It cannot. But I am a big proponent of the fair tax. Then at least we need to ask Congress to pass and then to obey a Balanced Budget Act. There is no reason whatsoever why this government needs to continuously live beyond its means. None whatsoever. Well, people expect blah, blah, blah. People want blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you know how many kids were taken off SNAP this year alone? 1 million kids. 1 million no longer get food through the SNAP program because the government has cut that program. But in the meantime, they're building a $900 million ballroom with a drone port on top, putting new white granite down outside the White House, building a new heliport, putting gold on everything in Washington, D.C. that you can imagine. And yet, $40 trillion in debt. Yikes. Okay, it's 8:01. Last week, a federal court in Manhattan ordered the release of the voluminous case files from Virginia Giuffre's 2015 civil lawsuit against Ghislaine Maxwell. This has been a hotly contested issue. The release of these files was in part the result of 8 years of litigation by the Miami Herald and its parent company, McClatchy, which have been fighting for the material since the reporter Julie K. Brown, who did just a tremendous job, since she published her series Perversion of Justice back in 2018. Last week, U.S. District Judge Loretta Preska, rejected Maxwell's final arguments to keep the files sealed, noting the passage last year of the Epstein Files Transparency Act superseded any earlier grand jury arguments that Maxwell was using to keep the records from the public. Why they even listen to this person, Maxwell, is beyond me. What does this mean? And what new information will we learn? Well, here's what Julie K. Brown wrote in the Miami Herald yesterday. First, some history. Giuffre brought this defamation lawsuit against Maxwell back in 2015 after Maxwell publicly proclaimed that Giuffre was a liar who had made up her allegations of being sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein, Maxwell, and other powerful men, including Epstein lawyer Alan Dershowitz and the former Prince Andrew. Giuffre, represented by the Boys Schiller firm, sued Maxwell for defamation, asserting that she faced public ridicule, contempt, and disgrace when Maxwell went public with her statements. As part of the lawsuit, the lawyers gathered tens of thousands of pages of discovery, including depositions by Giuffre, Maxwell, and dozens of other people. Part of the effort also involved Dershowitz, who, together with social media influencer Michael Chernovich, tried unsuccessfully to unseal portions of the Giuffre-Maxwell case while it was still being litigated. The lawsuit was settled in early 2017. Julie K. Brown said she had been told the discovery contained damning evidence against Epstein, Maxwell, and other men, and that it was worth trying to get the records to be unsealed on the grounds that they were never properly sealed in the first place. Judicial records by law are supposed to be open to the public. In this case, the former judge Robert Sweet, now deceased, issued a blanket sealing on all the documents because they contained sensitive and private information, quotes on both of those two words. Sweet placed a protective order on massive amounts of material, including hearings and judicial decisions made in the case, and voluminous evidence that Giuffre presented to show that Epstein and Maxwell were operating an underage sex trafficking operation. Well, that is not the way sealing is supposed to happen. Each document that the lawyers want sealed has to be examined, and those requesting it be sealed must provide legal justification to the judge for doing so. This wasn't done in this case. Nearly all the evidence that Virginia's lawyers uncovered about Epstein and Maxwell's sex trafficking that came out during the civil case was kept secret. Maxwell settled the case before it could go to trial, though, and paid Giuffre somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $5 million. By settling it, she thought that all the evidence about her involvement would remain under seal, but Julie Brown convinced her editors to ask the lawyers to file a motion to intervene in the case in order to unseal the files. And on August 9th, 2019, an appeals court eventually ruled in their favor. Thousands of pages were made public, including sworn statements by Giuffre, in which she alleged she was trafficked to Dershowitz, who represented Epstein, former Prince Andrew, former Maine Senator George Mitchell, former New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, hedge fund manager Glenn Dubin, hotel magnate Tom Pritzker, the late MIT scientist Marvin Minsky. All the men denied they were involved with her. And then, of course, Epstein was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell the following morning. Coincidence? I'll let you be the judge. Epstein's death was immediately ruled a suicide without any investigation based on the word of one guard who was later charged with falsifying reports, a move which the public should still question to this day, said Julie K. Brown. She goes on to say she doesn't know whether the release of these files had anything to do with Epstein's death, but the rolling release of these sealed files was nevertheless a watershed moment for the press. It established a legal and journalistic precedent in how courts weigh privacy interests against the public's right to know information that is of critical importance, and the case is still cited to this day. The appeals court ruled that the documents were judicial documents inherently subject to a strong presumption of public access under the First Amendment and common law. So now they're going to be released at some point. And apparently the Miami Herald's attorneys believe there will be some new material in these files if and when the DOJ decides to release them. The documents will not be released by the court or parties. Instead, they are documents in DOJ's possession that it reviewed pursuant to the Epstein Transparency Act. The DOJ will likely need some time to redact and then will hopefully release on its own timeline. More to come on this as time passes and we learn more and more about the horrible things that happened at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Hey, who's coming up next? Bob Zany. Stay there.
You've got Dave Elliott.
A minute out for Alice Sweetwaters. You know how much I love Alice's? Well, let me tell you how much I love Alice's. For the last 22 years, I have been telling everybody I can about how great Alice Sweetwaters is. From their fresh-made seafood dishes to their incredible bar, their wild wine list, the ability to eat indoors or outdoors, and I might add, some pretty darn nice gazpacho, you will find exactly what you're looking for at Alice Sweetwaters. Try the shrimp wontons, for example. They're absolutely fantastic. Or the little mini sliders, or the grouper fish and chips, or the grouper dinner, or the grouper Reuben. You get my drift? There's a lot of stuff going on at Alice Sweetwaters, including the best sandwich in America, the lobster Reuben. Check it all out at the corner of Airport Road and Glades Boulevard. Alice Sweetwaters, where they serve crabs, shrimps, and big people.
Have you finally found your dream home, or are you looking to refinance or pull equity from your home? Then call Alpha Title Services of Florida. Don't let fraud or hidden property issues, such as liens, unpaid taxes, boundary mistakes, or a cloud on title, to name a few, ruin your big day. That's why you need Alpha Title Services in your corner. They do the deep digging to complete your contract conditions and assure your title is clear in order to provide the ultimate protection on your family's investment. Before you sign on the dotted line, make sure your future will be truly yours by contacting Alpha Title Services at 239-260-1495. To protect your dream, let your realtor or lender know you choose Alpha Title Services of Florida to handle all of your closing needs. Trust the people who have been serving the real estate community since 1999. Trust the people you can call to ask questions before signing your contract. Trust Alpha Title Services of Florida. Online at alphatitleservices.com or call 239-260-1495.
Hey, wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind. Like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest.
Uh-oh.
Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to learn your risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Life doesn't come with a remote control.
Yikes!
So you're on your own with the wasps. You have the power to take control of prediabetes. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
And here's Heather with the weather.
Well, it's beautiful out there, sunny and 75, almost a little chilly in the shade. Now, let's get a read on the inside of your car. It is hot. You've only been parked a short time and it's already 99 degrees in there. Let's not leave children in the back seat while running errands. It only takes a few minutes for their body temperatures to rise, and that could be fatal.
Cars get hot, fast, and can be deadly. Never leave a child in a car. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
When Dave talks, his lips actually move. Dave Elliott.
I love Thursday mornings, not because it's Friday Eve, but because it's time for the Zany Report with Bob Zany. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Dave. BobZany.net's my website. From there, you can go and check out my Dry Bar comedy special on YouTube. Watch it, like it, share it from YouTube. Millions have. Why not you?
Yeah.
Dayline, Des Moines, Iowa. A stolen BMW flew off an exit ramp on I-80 and crashed into an auto auction lot. A quick-thinking auctioneer said, sold for $1.
Yeah, ain't Storage Wars, but it'll work.
It'll work. Good news. Bad news. Here's the bad news. Menopause, the musical in Las Vegas, has ended its 27-year run. The good news is you can still catch the View on ABC.
Joy Behar be damned.
Oh. Dayline, Sacramento, California. Officials have found elevated levels of lead in 11 homes near a gun range. After a thorough investigation, they moved the targets from the front yard of those homes.
That was good.
Yeah, they moved the targets from the front of the homes.
The audience loved it.
You did it. That's why there was lead in their homes.
I see. Lead in their homes. Got it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good thing we can edit that out and put in a new one.
It's early.
BobZany.net. That's where you go to see where I'm headed next. Check out my Macari store. Book me on Cameo. Get a Wake Me If You're Horny t-shirt in the merch store. Now you know how it's done, sir. Take us back in time. It's working. It's March 17th, 2009.
Wow.
Dayline, Italy. Archaeologists have discovered the remains of a 16th century woman with a brick in her mouth. Experts believe this is proof she may have been a vampire or the world's first low-flush toilet.
I got that one.
I know you did, and you shouldn't have. It's wrong on every level.
Yeah.
On the Twitter, at Bob Zany, Zany Bob on the Instagram, and Zany Baby, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Bob Zany. Bob Zany fan page, follow me there, and the official Bob Zany channel on YouTube. Subscribe, it's free to do so. Until next week, this is Bob Zany, baby.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Off to another comedy extravaganza, I have no doubt. Bob Zany joins us every single Thursday morning for a laugh or two from the Zany Report. You can check him out at Captain Brian's Off the Hook Comedy Club. It's the week of Thanksgiving. November, he'll be back. We'll be there. A scientist who worked with the Pentagon's UFO program for decades said he has seen the evidence that the U.S. is hiding the bodies of 4 different alien races that crashed on Earth. Now, I have to, I guess, preface this next part by saying this comes from the Daily Mail. Take it for what it's worth. Dr. Eric Davis, an astrophysicist specializing in advanced aerospace propulsion, said he has personally, because he eats a lot of Mexican food, said he has personally seen classified photos and records from the U.S. government, which allegedly confirmed the existence of extraterrestrial life found in wrecked UFOs. Okay, then. Be that as it may. This included at least 4 distinct species, which the U.S. has now stored in top-secret facilities. However, Davis noted the locations of the corpses changed during the Obama administration.
I'm not sure where they went, but the location changed nonetheless. Davis specifically mentioned alien races known as the Greys, the Nordics, a race of insectoids which look like a human-sized praying mantis, and a species called the reptilians due to their humanoid lizard-like appearance. I think we talked about this guy once before. There's a minimum of 4 that we know of, he said. I've seen the evidence. I've seen the records. He was on News Nation the other day. He compared the Greys to the aliens seen in the science fiction film Close Encounters of the Third Kind, a small gray-skinned humanoid with large heads and black eyes, or a large head and black eyes. I don't think they had multiple heads. Meanwhile, the Nordics were described as looking like extremely tall Scandinavians with blonde hair and the most human-like features of the alleged alien races. And according to this one photo that somebody took, they looked pretty darn good in a cat suit as well. So if you're, if you're looking for a little entertainment, go to News Nation and look at the story about the space aliens from this knucklehead. From Lin Yuju and a number of other people, artificial hibernation reveals synaptic engram architecture associated with memory retention. This is from science.com. What does that mean? Well, it's about memories. Described as an ephemeral nature, it's a touchstone of human experience and a major mystery in neuroscience, how memories actually work. How can we recall memories from long ago, even though the brain is constantly replacing its circuits? Well, to figure this out, researchers studied the brains of mice placed in artificial hibernation. This state was of interest because memories are related to neural connectivity in the hippocampus, a brain region that effectively flatlines during hibernation with activity dropped by 70%. See, mice lose half their synapses in this deep sleep, which means it's a natural test of memory retention after a significant disruption of brain connectivity. Yet when the mice in this test awoke from their slumber, they were able to remember the location of treats in a maze that they had explored before the experiment. The results reveal that despite this profound reduction in neuronal activity, mice retained previously acquired memories and preserved neuronal representations of experience, said researchers co-led by Y.J. Lin, who we mentioned earlier. He's at Okinawa at the Institute of Science and Technology. Rather than relying solely on the strength of individual synapses, they said the brain may store memories through higher order structural architecture embedded within the neuronal network, the network of neurons in your brain. The team has a lot more specific scientific stuff to say, but my basic takeaway is memories are brain ghosts. They're just, they're there, and what would happen after your brain officially dies? Do the memories stay on? Of what use would they be if the brain can't process them, I guess? If you have Parkinson's or know somebody who does, you might be interested in this next piece. Bud Leavell, who is 72, suffered from severe tremors for years after his Parkinson's diagnosis, making him impossible to enjoy his favorite pastime of repairing radios in his garage. But within minutes of receiving a newly approved ultrasound treatment, his tremor was completely gone. Now, I've heard of this before. I think it was Terry Crews, the host of America's Got Talent. His wife has Parkinson's and had this treatment done, and you have to do it on each side of the brain separately, but it stopped her tremors. Leavell, who's a retired salesman and Air Force veteran in Arlington, Texas, experienced the dramatic before and after result at UT Southwestern Medical Center. The focused ultrasound targeted precise areas deep in Leavell's brain. Unlike deep brain stimulation, which requires opening the skull, the new treatment is non-invasive. At his latest follow-up, His tremor remained as well controlled as it was immediately after the procedure, according to his doctor. When asked how the tremor was doing, Lavelle responded with, "What tremor?" Pretty remarkable. Lavelle was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2017. Immediately following surgery for thyroid cancer, he said, "My voice was weak and gravelly, and within a few days, a tremor set into my right hand." He said, "Before this time, I was experiencing a slow loss of my sense of smell." Tremors made it frustratingly difficult for Lavelle to perform certain functions, especially anything that required fine motor skills in his dominant hand, such as using his binoculars or clicking a computer mouse. Dr. Baya Shah, a neuroradiologist at UT Southwestern Medical Center, introduced Lavelle to the option of a focused ultrasound treatment that was approved by the FDA in January to treat the primary motor symptoms of Parkinson's, including stiffness and slowness. High-energy ultrasound waves are focused across the skull into discrete brain targets, Shah said. The ultrasound energy heats up those nuclei or nerve bundles and removes them. This stops the pathologic transmission of electrical activity causing tremors or other symptoms. Patients who've been diagnosed with Parkinson's are typically treated with medications, the doctor noted. He said interventional options are discussed when the medications become less effective or patients develop side effects. Those options include deep brain stimulation and now focused ultrasound. Each Parkinson's patient can be affected differently. He said the beauty of focused ultrasound is that before we permanently remove the tissue, we can use low-energy ultrasound waves to see if the patient's symptoms respond to the particular target. This is very important as the optimal target may vary in patients. UT Southwestern also uses advanced imaging to map a patient's brain before the procedure, which gives doctors a clearer picture of the ultrasound's intended target. Pretty cool. In Lavelle's case, his tremor responded strongly even to the initial low-energy ultrasound, giving the team confidence they had identified the right target. He said, although the critical cardinal symptoms of Parkinson's are slowness and stiffness, Bud's most bothersome symptom was a tremor, so getting rid of the shaking was our primary goal, Shaw added, noting that doctors can select different brain targets based on which symptoms are most troublesome. Lavelle was eager to try the new therapy, but he did have some concerns about what the outcome would be. He said immediately after receiving the ultrasound therapy on April 13th, his tremor was gone. He said, I can hold my hand still with or without a tool in my hand or while working on a project. I can also get a fork or a spoon with food in my mouth with ease. But this may turn into another problem as I love to eat, he said. Now, there are some potential risks associated with the treatment. Those include numbness and tingling around the mouth and fingertips, trouble walking, talking, or swallowing, sometimes weakness in the upper or lower extremity, balance issues, or struggles with episodic memory. Side effects occur approximately 20 to 30% of the time and generally improve over time, he said. There's one key trade-off compared with deep brain stimulation. Deep brain can be adjusted if symptoms return or worsen, but with focused ultrasound, there is no device that can be reprogrammed. That means if symptoms return after the focused ultrasound, the patient could potentially require another treatment. Although the therapy has shown short-term effectiveness, because it's a newer technology, there has not been long-term data available. I think this is pretty good news for people who are suffering from the severe effects of Parkinson's. So research continuing. I wonder how much of this was funded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. Well, the company I love to hate is in the news. Comcast has rolled out a new motion sensing technology to its latest home routers, allowing homeowners to receive notifications about activity detected inside their house while they're away. It's free. It's called Wi-Fi Motion. It turns newer Xfinity gateways into motion sensors by detecting interruptions to the Wi-Fi signal of the wireless network, and then sends a notification through the Xfinity app. As first reported by The Verge, The new Wi-Fi motion feature works for advanced Xfinity Gateways XB7 and newer models and is opt-in, which means users can choose whether to switch on the feature in the Xfinity app. As quoted by the publication, customers can use this feature for motion detection in their home and for a basic level of security. There is a privacy trade-off. By enabling the feature, Comcast says it may disclose information generated from a customer's use of Wi-Fi motion to outside parties under a broad array of reasons. And Comcast says it doesn't have to tell you. So that's a big no for me. Besides, I have cameras. I don't need my Wi-Fi to tell me when stuff is moving around. Hey, we missed it, and I am so sorry. But yesterday was National Potato Day. I know. National Potato Day is every August 19th, inviting everyone to savor the delicious versatility of the humble spud. From crispy fries to creamy mashed potatoes, there are countless ways to enjoy it. So if you missed Mashed Potato Day, or Potato Day in general, go get you some. Mash them, fry them, crisp cut them. Do whatever you want to them. I'm sorry we missed it. I feel terrible about it. However, there's other stuff that happened on this day in history, and I think we ought to go through some of it. First of all, some birthdays. The guy who played Will Riker on Star Trek The Next Generation and has directed numerous episodes of various Star Trek series, Jonathan Frakes, 74 today. Bill Clinton hits the big 8-0 today. I did not blow out those candles with that woman. Gerald McCraney, remember him from Simon & Simon and Major Dad, 79. Peter Gallagher, the actor from the OC and American Beauty, is 71. John Stamos from Full House and General Hospital, 63. Kira Sedgwick, married to Kevin Bacon, is 61. Tabitha Soren, former MTV reporter, 59. And Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine is 44. On this date in history, Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry was born. How about that? He was born on the same day, but multiple years earlier than Jonathan Frakes. 1976, President Gerald R. Ford won the Republican presidential nomination of the party's national convention in Kansas City. 1996, Miss Universe Joseph Alicia Machado Fajardo of Venezuela was told to lose 27 pounds or lose her crown. Internet search engine Google went public on this date in 2004. A year later, on August 20th, Jim Peterson and his deckhand were tuna fishing off the Oregon coast when the transmission seized up on their 38-foot, 60-year-old wooden trawler. Peterson was able to get the boat running again, but only in reverse. The pair could have radioed the Coast Guard for a tow, but decided instead to head for Port Bass-Ackward with their top speed at 7 knots, cut in half. The wrong-way duo, sleeping off and on, made the trip back to land in 39 hours, or a day and a half. In 2006, on August 20th, a team of Australian scientists launched a multi-million-dollar project to fight global warming through a reduction in bovine flatulence, better known in some circles as cow farts. The goal was to breed cows that produce more milk with less methane. When was the last time you got low methane milk? I just want to know. Ever? 2020, Apple became the first U.S. company to be valued at $2 trillion, just 2 years after it reached $1 trillion. And two things happened on this date in 2022. Jennifer Lopez and Ben Affleck got married yet again. month after the surprise Las Vegas nuptials, they held a full weekend bash at the actor's estate in Riceboro, Georgia. And on that same day, Ron Cephas Jones, the Emmy-winning actor best known for playing William Hill on This Is Us, died. He was 66 years old. I already mentioned that yesterday was National Potato Day, and I'm sorry we missed that. Today is Black Cow Root Beer Float Day. Go make yourself a Black Cow Root Beer Float, or they're called either one. They're not called Black Cow Root Beer Floats. There's a Black Cow, and then there's a root beer float. And wouldn't you know, I'm actually giving you yesterday's information. But oh well. So as long as we did National Potato Day yesterday, we might as well do these other events from yesterday. Coming up in a few minutes, we're going to play the impossible question. And yes, I will reveal the answer to yesterday's impossible question, since nobody got it, and I don't think anybody got it on Instagram either. So I'll let you know there was an answer, and it was legit. And I'll pass that along to you when we play the game coming up in just a couple of minutes. So be ready for that, my friend. Now, if you, like me, have a recently purchased or leased vehicle, it probably has USB-A and the newer USB-C ports in the dash, in the center console, maybe in the back for passengers. They're everywhere. And it makes charging phones fast and easy, right? Well, no. Now, my car no longer has the old-fashioned USB ports. It has the newer, littler ones. That USB port in your car isn't necessarily for charging. It's mainly a data port. One guy details the fact that his wife has a 2024 Chevy Blazer. It has two USB-C ports on the dashboard. He said at first he was happy to use and see USB-C instead of the old USB-A, but things are far more complicated than that. And there's a reason those USB ports in your car are useless for charging. As I said, I only have USB-C, and they're clearly labeled whether they're for charging or for data. So on a recent road trip, this guy plugged his Samsung Galaxy S25 Plus into that USB-C port with 50% battery, thinking it'll quickly top off like it does on the charger at home. Instead, the screen told him 2 hours, 51 minutes until full. Samsung phones tell you how long it'll take to charge fully, and considering this device can go from 0 to 50 in about 30 minutes, that's quite a difference. Well, if you've ever plugged a phone into your USB port in your car, you know what I'm talking about. It basically has enough juice to trickle charge your device, let alone maintain its current battery level while using Google Maps and navigation. But check the markings on the ports on your car, because they do show you which is which. But dedicated ports for charging aren't much better. Car brands keep getting this wrong, says the author of this piece. Many cars have a second always-on port designed for charging devices. Unfortunately, the situation isn't much better with that port. Most of these secondary USB slots in vehicles, even the rear-facing USB-C ports, only deliver 1 amp. That's still not enough to charge a smartphone at a useful speed. Many newer vehicles actually label the USB ports, as I said, with some covers or labels stating 2.1 amp output, but more often than not, those ports are still slow. That's because the voltage is too low, or despite the higher rating, it still prioritizes a data connection over charging. So if you're noticing that your phone has low levels and you try to plug it into the charger and it's just not getting there, at least with any speed, that's probably the reason why. On the other hand, if all you're trying to do is stem the loss of charge in your phone, I suppose plugging it into one of these ports will at least keep your battery from discharging any more. The tarp covering the Kennedy Center facade. You've seen that. It's over where Donald Trump had his name put on the thing. They've covered it up. Well, according to the Department of Justice, why they're weighing in on this, I don't know. But they say that the tarp that covers the facade must remain as part of ongoing construction activities following the removal of the president's name from the building. According to Justice Department attorneys in a recent court filing, I'm glad they're taking care of the important issues of the United States of America, like covering up a name on a building. Removal of the scaffolding and tarp obscuring the storied venue's marquee will depend on the extent of required repairs, the government attorneys wrote on a Tuesday status report to the federal judge that ordered his name removed in May. How tough would it be for some enterprising knucklehead to go up there with his iPhone camera and squeeze up there into the scaffolding and take a picture of what's behind it so we can see? This isn't rocket science. And that would solve it once and for all. Center management has erected one portion of the necessary scaffolding, which it used to remove President Trump's name from the building's facade, the filing says. The protective barrier around the scaffolding was and is a necessary element of the ongoing construction activities at the center. The explanation comes days after the Kennedy Center's board took a second swing at honoring the president by name, voting to carve "Renovated by President Donald J. Trump" below the official inscription honoring Kennedy. The new resolution would also name the grounds of the center the President Donald J. Trump Plaza. Not that he needs stuff named after him, like airports and roads and stuff. The board also voted on August 13th to shut down the center for 2 years to carry out an extensive $250 million renovation project. The legal team, representing ex officio member Representative Joyce Beatty, shot back at the DOJ's assertions in the same report, calling it a pretextual justification. Congress established the center as a tribute to President Kennedy, Beatty's attorneys wrote. His name should once again be visible on the facade, and the defendant's childish refusal to accept this court's ruling to that effect should end now. They're asking the court to demand further explanation on why the tarp shouldn't be removed within 30 days. And by the way, as a reminder, this show is coming to you from the Dave Elliott Memorial House, located in Naples, Florida. Just thought I would pass that along to you in case you wanted to know. Impossible question coming up.
You've got Dave Elliott.
Are you ready for a culinary experience like no other? Mark your calendars for the event of the season. Sizzle Dining is happening starting September 1st through the 30th. Picture this: a world of flavors, a celebration of taste, and a chance to make a difference in our community. Savor delectable dishes, expertly crafted by top chefs. Each plate telling a story of passion and creativity. But that's not all. Sizzle Dining benefits Blessings in a Backpack of Southwest Florida, a charity dedicated to ensuring no child has a hungry weekend. Dine with purpose. Every time you indulge in the exquisite offerings during Sizzle Dining, a portion of the proceeds will go directly to Blessings in a Backpack. So gather your loved ones, invite your friends, and come experience culinary excellence while making a meaningful impact. Share your moments with #DineWithPurpose. Sizzle Dining, taking place the entire month of September, where taste, compassion, and community come together in perfect harmony. Reserve your table today, because with Sizzle Dining, every bite counts and every meal matters.
When it comes to your health, there's no cookie cutter way to do things. Each person is individualized in their needs and their desires, and that's the case with your hearing too. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, with 2 locations in Naples, one in Colonial Square off Goodlette Frank Road, the other in the Vanderbilt Commons at Vanderbilt and Collier Boulevard, are here to help you. They help you with individualized treatment. You go in for a free hearing evaluation, and if you should happen to need a little help from a hearing device, they can offer you the exact device you need, the exact technology you need for your particular needs. Don't let your hearing get in the way of enjoying your life. They even have devices that can cut out the background noise if you're in a big crowd someplace. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, I've been going to them for years, and I know you should too. Believe me, you will notice the difference right away. Naples Audiology and Hearing Center, online at napleshearingcenter.com.
Put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on D&D. That means do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
And we're live here outside the Perez family home, just waiting for the... And there they go, almost on time this morning. Mom is coming out the front door strong with a double-arm kid carry. Looks like Dad has the bags. Daughter is bringing up the rear. Oh, but the diaper bed wasn't closed. Diapers and toys are everywhere. Ooh, but Mom has just nailed the perfect car seat buckle for the toddler. And now the eldest daughter, who looks to be about 9 or 10, has secured herself in the booster seat. Dad zips the bag closed, and they're off. But looks like Mom doesn't realize her coffee cup is still on the roof of the car. And there it goes. Oh, that's a shame. That mug was a fam favorite.
Don't sweat the small stuff. Just nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Learn more at nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Visit nhtsa.gov/the right seat.
Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Most people out here think that taking care of one another is important. And most people would step up for a neighbor going through a tough time. Most people around here help out friends and family when they need it. But the funny thing is, most of us won't look for help when we need it. Talk to someone if you're struggling with mental health, because most people out here really care. Find more information at loveyourmindtoday.org. That's loveyourmindtoday.org. Brought to you by the Huntsman Mental Health Institute and the Ad Council.
The impossible question on the Dave Elliott Show.
Maybe I ought to open my mic and then I can talk better. First of all, yesterday's impossible question was, you see them on TV cooking shows all the time, but only 20% of homes have one in their kitchen. We did not get an answer on Instagram, or a correct answer, and we did not get any answers on the show yesterday that were correct. But the correct answer is aprons. About 20% of homes have one in their kitchen, aprons. You see them on cooking shows all the time, of course, but not so much in the normal household. 8 out of 10 homes don't have an apron in it. So that's our yesterday's answer to the impossible question. Now today, at stake is a $25 gift certificate to Alice Sweetwater's. Be ready to let us know if you think you know the answer to this. About 41,000 people will seek medical care this year after being bitten by one of these. 41,000 people will seek medical care this year after being bitten by one of these. What could the answer be? 305-699-2665. 305-699-COOL. If you want to weigh in either by phone or by text this morning, either one is fine with me. 305-699-2665. If you haven't won anything in the last 30 days and you live in Southwest Florida, you're eligible to play today. And I put the requirement for living here because it's kind of a long commute to get to Alice's if you're not in town. It's not jellyfish, BA. Always the first one to answer. Not jellyfish. Sorry to say. There's the buzzer. It was stuttering this morning. About 41,000 people will seek medical care this year after being bitten by one of these. And no, it's not a dog. Sorry to say. What do you think the answer is? 305-699-2665. 41,000 people will seek medical care this year after being bitten by one of these. 305-699-2665. I will, as I always do, put the question on Instagram. It's up to you to answer it. If not, I'll give you the answer tomorrow. One more time, the question is, and I'll leave the phones open until we go off the stream this morning. About 41,000 people will seek medical care after being bitten by one of these. What do you think the answer is? Let me know. By the way, speaking of tomorrow, Chelsea Murphy, we expect to join us, and we'll be talking about places to go and things to see and activities to take part in. And BA's sister says a spider. Also incorrect. Let me know if you think you know the answer, either here or at Instagram at the Dave Elliott Show. And by the way, that Instagram reel also gets posted on Facebook, so you can find it in either place.
In the meantime, you know who Mike Lindell is? Yeah, the My Pillow guy, that guy with the mustache. I wish I could do a good Mike Lindell. Well, I don't know if I can get it right or not. No, that's not very good. Anyway, a fierce Trump ally and a founder of My Pillow. He now says he's willing to foot the bill for a full recount in Minnesota's GOP primary for governor, a race he lost this month by 11 percentage points. So it wasn't even close. Now, my question is, I thought the dude was out of money. He filed for bankruptcy, had to close his businesses, sell off all of his assets. How does he have $825,000 to pay for a recount? Well, in a brief phone call with NBC News yesterday, Lindell said that he had hired his own team to begin investigating the August 11th Republican primary, which NBC News projected State House Speaker Lisa DeMuth won, and that he had reached out to the Minnesota Secretary of State's office to ask for a cost estimate. $825 is what they came back with. Lindell, who has repeated debunked claims about voting machines rigged in the 2020 election, told NBC News that he expects the overall amount to reach upwards of $1 million because of additional actions, including hiring his own team to investigate the race, a cost he said he's prepared to pay. Again, where's he getting the dough? The Secretary of State's office said Wednesday that it had not yet received an official request for a recount. Bethke's letter and said Lindell must provide a recount request alongside a bond, cash, or surety for the estimated cost by Monday to move forward. He said he plans to personally go in there himself to deliver the official request Monday. He added that he's still waiting for the office to confirm where each county would hold its recount, as he plans to send designated observers to the sites to oversee the process. DeMuth, who is set to face Democratic nominee Amy Klobuchar in November, beat Lindell by about 45,000 votes. The guy just won't accept reality here. Okay, a couple more answers from Jackie, who wanted to know if the answer to our question about 41,000 people seek medical care this year after being bitten by one of these was a poisonous snake. The answer is no, that's not the right answer. And Betty Ann came in with another answer that is semi-correct, and so I'm not going to say what it is. Semi-correct. And by the way, Betty Ann's sister did have the right answer yesterday with apron for yesterday's question, but she's ineligible to win because, well, she knows me in a very special way. So I wouldn't be fair. 305-699-2665. If you think you want to take a shot at it. Somebody else said I'm not eligible to win, but I'm guessing mosquito, to which I say no, that's not it either. So keep guessing, and we'll put the question up on Instagram and Facebook for you to try to come up with an answer at the Dave Elliott Show. And if you, by the way, the first person to get it on Facebook or Instagram, if you haven't won in the last 30 days and you meet the qualifications, I will award you the Alice Sweetwater gift certificate. So you still have a chance to win even after the show is over. Don't assume that because you're listening to the show in the afternoon that somebody came up with the right answer. Go to Instagram and Facebook and answer it anyway. Well, it is peak driving season in the U.S., and gasoline and diesel prices have never been this expensive this late in the year. I went by a gas station yesterday, and I think I saw diesel at $5.59 a gallon. $5.59 a gallon. Gas and diesel prices are at a record seasonal high, according to data from the American Automobile Association. Drivers are paying an average of $4 a gallon for gas and $5.40 a gallon for diesel in August for the first time ever. This comes as millions of Americans typically take to the road for vacations and family visits. At this time last year, gasoline was $3.20 a gallon and diesel was $3.70 a gallon. There's little relief on the horizon as both the U.S. war in Iran and the Russian-Ukraine conflict stretch on, crimping global supplies of crude oil and fuel from these major producing regions. The Department of Energy forecasts that gasoline will cost an average of $4 a gallon this quarter, and then will drop to $3.72 in the fourth quarter, a figure well above seasonal norms. For diesel, the lifeblood of the trucking and the industrial economy, the price per gallon will fall to just shy of $5 by the end of the year, they say. And those forecasts mark a major revision upward from a year ago. Okay, somebody already said jellyfish, so we're not going to count that as an answer. Somebody else said bitten by a cat. Sorry, that's not it either. About 41,000 people will seek medical care this year after being bitten by one of these. Somebody came really close to getting, and I could argue that they were really right on, but I didn't give that answer because they're not eligible to win. And it wouldn't be fair of me to say the answer if you haven't won and you want to win. That's why. Elsewhere this morning, in China, officers arrested a man after a break-in. They went through his confiscated phone. They found pictures of another guy posing with money. Turns out the man police had in custody had recently done a break-in with another guy who'd insisted his photo be taken with their loot. The man in custody told cops, in a Chinese accent, of course, and in Chinese, "It was our first robbery together. He was so thrilled. He wanted to show off." And just for fun, what is your tiny hill to die on? Like, so tiny that doesn't actually matter. You know, there's some you're gonna hold it. You're gonna hold to that belief no matter what. Well, if you take something out of the microwave before it beeps, you're required to clear the timer so the clock shows again. If you don't do that, I'm gonna hold you to it. Somebody else says, and I heartily agree with this, beans belong in chili. Chili without beans is hot dog sauce. The tiny hill you're prepared to die on. Angel hair pasta tastes better than spaghetti pasta. I have no opinion on that. Somebody else, I totally agree with this 100%. Grapes are amazing. Raisins ruin everything. And here's another tiny hill to die on. Close the toilet seat before flushing. Close it anytime the toilet isn't in use. Well, yeah, says you. Somebody else says triangular tortilla chips are better than round ones. I only agree with that if you're not using dip. You can't get enough dip on a triangular tortilla chip. The round ones, you can rub them right up against the side of the dip container, and you can get a lot of dip on them. Nugget ice, says one person, is the superior form of ice. We have a refrigerator that makes ice balls, round ice balls. So we can put ice balls in your drink. Supposedly, they don't melt as fast. And finally, says this deluded person, cold pizza is better than hot pizza. What's the tiny hill you'd like to die on? Let me know on Instagram and Facebook, or we'll talk about it tomorrow. Again, tomorrow, Chelsea Murphy joins us. Bill Barnett will be here as well, and I hope you will be as well to hang out with us and find out what's going on around town, what's going on around the state of Florida, what's going on in your neighborhood. If you have an item you'd like us to talk about tomorrow on the show, send me a text at 305-699-2665. 305-699-2665. Please follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and I'll put the impossible question up there. We still don't have an answer, and you could still win if you come up with the answer on social media, so do that. Meanwhile, have a great Thursday.